Most people think money is a math problem. A number in an account, a balance that goes up or down, a thing you either have enough of or you don't. And because it feels like math, people assume it stays out there, in the bank, in the bills, in the spreadsheet, separate from who they actually are on the inside. But money doesn't stay out there, it gets in. It changes the way you think, the way you see other people, the way you make decisions. Sometimes the kind of person you slowly become. And the strangest part is that it does almost all of this quietly, underneath your awareness, in a place you never think to look. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what money is doing to your mind at every level, from having almost none of it, all the way up to having more than you could ever spend. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. The psychological effect of money doesn't get smaller as you earn more. It just changes shape. And if you can't see the shape it's taking right now, it's running you instead of the other way around. Let's get the framing right first, because this whole video rests on it. We're not talking about what money lets you buy. We're talking about what money does to your attention, what it pulls your mind toward, what it pushes out, and what it quietly rewires when you're not paying attention. That's the metric almost nobody tracks, and it's the one that touches everything: your stress, your relationships, your decisions, your sense of who you are. To make this real, we're going to follow one person the whole way up. Daniel is 34. He's not a billionaire and he's not broke. He's somewhere in the middle, like most people watching this. And over the next few minutes, we're going to watch what happens inside his head as his money changes. Because the money is the easy part to see. The mind is where the real story is. Let's start at the bottom. When Daniel was 24, he had almost nothing. A few hundred in checking, rent due in 9 days, a phone bill he was deciding whether to skip. And here's what most people get wrong about this stage. They assume the problem is the lack of money. It isn't. The deeper problem is what the lack of money does to your thinking. Researchers have a name for it: scarcity. And what they've found is genuinely unsettling. When your mind is consumed by not having enough, it doesn't just make you stressed, it measurably lowers your cognitive bandwidth. In one set of studies, people preoccupied with a money shortfall performed worse on reasoning tests. The effect was comparable to losing a night of sleep, or in some measures, around 13 IQ points. Not because they were less capable, because a huge chunk of their mental processing was being silently consumed by the problem in the background. So picture Daniel at 24. He looks distracted. He forgets things. He makes a bad decision on a payday loan. And everyone around him, maybe even he himself, reads that as a character flaw. He's just bad with money. But that's the reversal. It wasn't a character flaw. It was a mind running with most of its tabs already open, processing a threat that never fully closes. Scarcity doesn't make you poor. It makes you tunnel, narrowing your focus to right now, this week, this bill, and quietly stealing the bandwidth you'd need to ever climb out. That's the first rung. And here's what's interesting. Most people assume the next rung up fixes it. A little more money, a little breathing room, and the mind relaxes. It does, but not the way you'd think. By 29, Daniel has a steady job. The rent is covered, the lights stay on, there's even a little left at the end of the month. On paper, the scarcity is gone. So why does the anxiety still hum? Because the mind doesn't reset to zero when the emergency passes, it recalibrates. The acute panic of, will I make rent, gets replaced by a quieter, more permanent low-grade worry, the kind that lives in the background of an ordinary Tuesday. Studies on financial stress show that the feeling of financial insecurity doesn't track neatly with how much money you actually have. Daniel at 29 has objectively more than Daniel at 24, but the worry didn't disappear. It just got harder to point at. There's no single bill to panic about anymore, which somehow makes it worse because now there's nothing to blame the unease on. It feels like it's coming from inside. This is the dead zone of money and mind. Not desperate, not free. Stable enough to function. Fragile enough that one bad month would unravel it. And your nervous system knows it, even when your bank statement looks fine. So Daniel does what almost everyone does. He decides the answer is more. And for a while, more works. This is where the climb gets seductive. In his 30s, Daniel's income jumps. He upgrades the apartment, better car, the first vacation he didn't have to flinch about. And every single one of those upgrades delivers a real hit of relief and pleasure. The problem is what happens next. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation, the treadmill. The new apartment feels incredible for about 3 months. Then it becomes the floor, the baseline, the thing you'd now feel deprived to lose. The raise that felt life-changing in month 1 is just normal by month 6, and the mind, having adjusted, starts scanning for the next upgrade to chase the same hit. Daniel isn't more content than he was at 29. He's running faster to stay in the same emotional place. And here's the reversal that catches people off guard. The treadmill doesn't slow down when you earn more. It speeds up. The more you have, the more it takes to move the needle, because your baseline keeps climbing to meet your income. Daniel at 35 needs a far bigger win to feel what a small win gave him at 25. The money grew. The satisfaction it buys per dollar shrank. So if more money keeps adapting away, is there a level where it actually buys lasting peace? This is where the research gets genuinely interesting, and where most people's assumptions fall apart. There's a famous finding that for years got quoted everywhere. Emotional well-being rises with income up to around $75,000 a year, and then flattens out. More money past that point bought a better life on paper, but not more day-to-day happiness. It became the number everyone clung to, the point where money supposedly stops mattering to your mind. Except the story turned out to be more layered than that. Newer research, looking at far more data, found that for most people, well-being actually keeps rising with income well past that line. There's no hard ceiling. But for one specific group, people who were already unhappy, already carrying unresolved pain, more money did almost nothing. Past a certain point, their suffering simply wasn't a money problem anymore, and no amount of income could touch it. Sit with what that means for Daniel. As he climbs, money keeps helping right up until it hits the part of him that money was never the cause of. The loneliness, the unprocessed grief, the restlessness he's been outrunning. Those don't have a price. He can keep climbing, and at some point, he crosses an invisible line where the next dollar stops buying any peace at all. Because the thing aching in him isn't financial. It just looked financial from below. And then there's the top rung, the one almost no one warns you about, because from down here, it looks like pure arrival. When Daniel finally has real wealth, security solved, work optional, something subtle shifts in how he relates to other people. And this isn't a moral judgment, it's a measured pattern. Research on wealth and behavior has found that, on average, as people gain more money and status, they can become less attuned to others, less generous in certain controlled tests, less likely to notice the person beside them, more likely to read their own success as something they earned alone. Wealth can quietly insulate you. When you never need anyone, you slowly stop practicing the muscle of needing anyone. And empathy, like any muscle, weakens when it isn't used. So the man who at 24 had his whole mind consumed by other people's judgments and his own survival, now at the top, risks the opposite problem. A mind so insulated, it forgets to look outward at all. The scarcity that once narrowed his attention onto the world has been replaced by an abundance that can narrow it onto himself. Same mechanism, money pulling his attention, pointing in the exact opposite direction. That's the whole arc, and notice the shape of it. At the bottom, money owns your attention by its absence. In the middle, it owns it through the treadmill of always wanting more. At the top, it owns it by walling you off. The amount changed completely. The fact that money was quietly steering your mind never changed at all. Now, before this lands as something bleak, here's the part that actually matters. None of these effects are destiny. They're defaults. What happens when you let money work on your mind without watching it? Daniel at every stage had a second option, and so do you. The person who names the scarcity tunnel can plan around it instead of drowning in it. The person who sees the treadmill can deliberately step off and let a good thing stay good. The person who notices the insulation can choose on purpose to stay connected, to give, to need people anyway. The mechanism only runs you while it's invisible. The moment you can see it, you get to decide. So here's what to do this week. Don't check your balance. Check your attention. Ask one honest question. When money crosses your mind, which direction is it pulling you? Toward fear, toward more, or toward yourself and away from everyone else? That answer tells you which rung you're really standing on, and it's almost never the one your bank account says. Because where your money sits is just a number. What money is doing to your mind is the thing that actually shapes your life. And most people go their whole lives without once stopping to look. In the next video, I'll break down the exact mental habits that let some people hold money without letting it quietly rewire who they are. That's where this really gets good.